live button. So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet. Before we go ahead and get started, we'd like to make sure the tubes are connecting themselves before we start rambling off into oblivion, which has been known to happen from time to time. But it looks like they're working today, which is tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group, located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my friends, we are talking about the White House being in retreat. They are backpedaling on this COVID saga. For a long time, it was their bread and butter. They're recognizing that many Americans are sick and tired of this stuff. They know that the Republicans have just taken over the House of Representatives. The Republicans are driving hard and fast to undo all of the pandemic madness. And the White House just tried to preempt them. They came out yesterday, basically while we were on the program, and they said, uh-oh, pandemic's over. And we started to learn more about what that entails. And so we're going to break it all down today in our first segment, the Biden retreating on COVID segment. There was a lot of debate about this today because the White House is, yes, they're sort of acting on it. They're saying we are going to end this in May, couple of months coming up, not until May 11th. But the Republicans are saying, yeah, but we're in charge now. And we've got a bunch of months between now and May. We don't want any of your COVID protocols to be in existence. And so they'll go through that. We're going to make sure we understand what is actually happening with the Biden new declaration that is going to come out. It is expiring in May. He already said it was over several months ago. We'll revisit that. He explained it to some reporter when he was holding her hand on the umbrella today. You listen here. I am staying dry while I answer your question. Give me that umbrella, lady. So we'll talk about that. And then we're going to understand what this actually does, right? What happens when all of these COVID insanity things expire. CNN gave us a roundup, and we'll check in on what this might do or not do to student loans, because I know that is a big, big saga as well. We'll see what the whole country does when you have, I don't know, a couple 100,000 people that just have to start paying loans again that they are not prepared to pay because their credit cards are maxed out and they're already living paycheck to paycheck. Could be a bit problematic. We'll see. Then we're going to turn our attention over to Congress because they're not waiting around. You can see we've got a bunch of clips from Congress. It was a lively day today. We've got Representative Mary Miller from Illinois. She's explaining that they are moving forward with House bills to undo a lot of this COVID stuff. They're not waiting until May. They said they were coming in hot, and they're coming in hot. Representative Raskin has cancer. I didn't know about this. And so we're going to, say our well wishes to Representative Raskin, who was in Congress today, of course, with cancer. James Comer said, we wish him well. Of course, we do wish him well. And so we'll play that clip. It was a nice little moment between, two warring sides, just pausing and saying, bro, cancer absolutely sucks. So, we'll go through that one. Then we'll go over to Congress because we've got Representative Sheila Lee Jackson Lee. And she says, look, the pandemic is not over, okay? We need to panic about this for at least a couple more decades. And she wants this bill that these Republicans are proposing gone. She said, no, I don't want any of this stuff to pass. We'll see what she says. We've got several different clips from some conservative Republican representatives. Representative Carmack from Florida. She says, look, lady, the pandemic is over. Marionette Miller was actually physician, and she came out and she had a nice little fiery speech there. And Marjorie Taylor Greene said, it's about the mandates and said that people should have the right to choose what they put in their body in the form of jabs. We also have Tom Massey, who is one of the new upcoming representatives. I think he's quite astute individual. And he was explaining the White House is really on full retreat, and you can see it on full display. They know this COVID situation is a big problem for them. They know the Republicans are going to come in hot. They know Americans are tired of this garbage, and they're trying to preempt them. They're trying to take away the excitement from the Republicans' latest effort. And so we'll talk about that. Then we'll turn our attention over to what's going on with the Biden documents, because evidently there's pretty amazing news that there was actually an FBI search that took place in mid-November of last year. And you're going, man, this story is crazy. Every time we come back here, there's just new information about it. And so we got to tuck this into the timeline and ask ourselves about this now. And this is, it's just another component that shatters the Biden narrative that they've been open and transparent about all of this. Apparently, the FBI was rummaging around Biden's offices in the Penn Biden Center in November. And so we have a lot of questions about this that we will get into as we read that article. We're going to turn our attention over to Mitch McConnell. He is very spicy today. We lovingly call him Cocaine Mitch because sometimes he's very spicy. Today's one of those days. You might want to put the children to bed before we get to Cocaine Mitch because he's fired up. I mean, you'll see it. He actually speaks for more than 60 seconds on the confidential documents. We'll turn our attention to James Comer, who is explaining that none of this stuff is normal. The White House says, oh, it's just kind of a document thing. Don't worry about it. And he's saying, no, that's not the case at all. Investigation will continue on. The Treasury is denying the new Congress some access to documents. They wanted information about Hunter Biden and his tax records and what his financials looked like. So they submitted some record requests over to the Treasury Department. Treasury said, you're not getting anything. Sorry. So the House responded back and they said, all right, well, how about this? How about we just launch a website where we can tell whistleblowers to go and report your nefarious misdeeds to us? And they did. They actually created a portal on the House Ways and Means Committee, just said, hey, okay, if you're in the IRS, in the Department of Treasury, and you've got a problem over there, why don't you just submit this form and just tell us what's going on and we'll look into it for you. We've got clips from Biden, and we're going to see what the White House is saying about the special counsel, as well as what Jim Jordan is planning in the coming days. Before we turn our final attention over to the DOJ battle, yesterday we talked about the DOJ versus, well, a whole slew of people. Another one is here. We've got Jim Jordan, who sent a letter over to the Department of Justice back on January 13th, 2023, and he's demanding all the information about what they're doing with this investigation with Robert Hur and others. And of course, back on January 13th, the Republicans were just sort of taken over. Well, the DOJ responded today, I believe, or yesterday, very, very recently, and they said a bunch of stuff. Basically, we're not giving you anything, so pound sand. We'll see what the Republicans say in response to that and how this could potentially escalate, because it certainly will. We are like in the first half of the first inning, in the first quarter, on the first period. And so there's going to be a lot more to go. Of course, if you want to be a part of the show, my friends, the best place to do that is by heading on over to our amazing community, and our friends are already chatting over there right now at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. I see John McGarvey's over there, GDL's MAL's over there, Zach Nichols. We've got Facts Matters in the house. It says, is Paul Minot on Twitter today? I don't know. Is Paul Minot in the house? We got MNL Hayes. We've got John McGarvey. Aggie Martin's in the house, Cool Guy's in the house, JC the Music Man, and the whole crew is over there chatting away. And so come and join us. We do morning member streams, headline streams. We try to, have a lot of fun over there. And so come check us out. And a lot more is coming down the pike. I also want to say thank you to our sponsors, our friends over at 4patriots.com, where you can get your survival food and your survival gear using code Robert to save 10% off. Our friends over at Goldco, where you can protect your retirement with gold and silver. Just visit robertlikesgold.com, and it's true, I do, to protect your savings. And of course, our latest sponsor is Brickhouse Nutrition. And it's very important to eat your greens and be healthy. Get your servings of vegetables and fruits, and you can save 15% when you go to fieldofgreens.com with code Robert. 15% off that, and look how vibrant you'll feel. You'll feel super energized. It'll just be bursting out of your scalp. Absolutely incredible. And of course, our law firm, the R&R Law Group, where we help good people charged with crimes. If you are in Arizona and you're in trouble with the law, we can help. Visit us online at rrlawaz.com. All right. And so let's turn our attention back to the meat and potatoes and get this puppy queued up. The Biden administration retreats on COVID. They know the Republicans are coming in hot. They're planning on beating the Biden administrations peacefully and politically with their COVID mania, saying, look what you have done to our country. We're going to undo all of this. And they're going to have a lot of fun doing it. And so what does the Biden administration do? They want to preempt that. They want to sort of take the wind out of the sails of the Republicans, and they want to announce, oh, well, we're going to end COVID anyways. So maybe you guys shouldn't look into what we spent, look into what we did, look into any of our constitutional violations, look how you wrecked our economy, and so on and so forth. We just are going to end it. Can we just be friends? Just let bygones be bygones? Well, we'll see. The White House made their announcement. We're going to analyze it and then see what the Congress is doing, because the Republicans, of course, are now in charge of the House of Representatives, and they're going to be coming in hot. And we'll go through a bunch of clips from many of them. But first, let's take a look at the background here. Biden backpedaling on COVID. This article comes over from Reuters. They say, posted on January 31st, U.S. is going to be ending the COVID-19 emergency declarations on May 11th. That's really great. All right, so officially it's going to be done, as apparently what our leaders tell us now. That's nice that they're educating us about this. President Joe Biden administration on Monday said it's going to end the emergency declarations. Nearly 3 years after the United States imposed sweeping measures to curb the spread of the illness, or to pretend to do that. The COVID-19 national emergency, they were put in place by Trump. Biden has repeatedly extended the measures, which allowed millions of Americans to get free tests, vaccines, and treatments and other things. But the White House Office of Management and Budget said in a statement the declarations, which were set to expire in the coming months, would be extended again until May 11th and then terminated. In their statement, they said the wind down would align with the administration's previous commitments to give 60 days notice prior to terminating all this stuff. It's also going to have some implications known as Title 42. And they're having to deal with that story as well. So all of that is coming, right? May 11th. The big question is, what is this stuff going to actually do? It's going to be expiring a bunch of benefits. We'll take a look at what those are. But remember, Joe Biden's already told us that the pandemic was over. This was the president back in September 2022 telling us that the pandemic was over. So why do we have to wait until May to end it now?
Mr. President, first Detroit Auto Show in 3 years.
Yeah.
Is the pandemic over?
The pandemic is over. We still have a problem with COVID. We're still doing a lot of work on it. But the pandemic is over.
Great.
If you notice, no one's wearing masks. Everybody seems to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, they do seem to be in pretty good shape. That guy standing next to a Lamborghini, he's in really good shape. All right, so there's a declaration that we had in September 2022, but now it's going to end in May. We have questions about what's ultimately going to be ending, what sort of benefits are going to go away. We've been living in this weird state of perpetual militant COVID medical hysteria for the last 3 years. A lot of people are pretty baked into that system, right? We've talked about this here with student loans. Many people, headlines all over the place are saying that people are living paycheck to paycheck. Credit cards are maxed out. People are seeing inflation, right? Actual inflation that's hitting their groceries at 12 to 15% in different places around this country. What happens now when these student loans, which were on pause for the last 3 years, just turn on again? Boom. And everybody who's already redlining because of everything that's been going on now has to suddenly come out of pocket on these loans as well. A lot of these things are going to be a big problem for huge portions of this country. Let's take a look at what CNN is saying is going to be expiring. They posted this January 31st. They say these benefits will disappear when Biden ends the COVID national and public health emergencies in May. That means Americans could have to start paying for their COVID testing and treatment. The White House said in a statement, all this would be ending. They're going to be winding it down. Most Americans covered by Medicare and Medicaid and private insurance have been able to obtain COVID tests. Those tests were covered, but once the emergency ends, there might be some out-of-pocket costs. Vaccines will continue to be covered. State Medicaid programs will be continuing to cover. Private insurance could face charges for COVID tests. Americans with private insurance, and so on and so forth. There's Medicare provisions. We have less of an impact to public assistance programs. They say a total of roughly 15 million people could be dropped from Medicaid when the continuous enrollment requirement ends. They expanded the impact on the FDA. When the Biden administration ends the emergency, existing emergency use authorizations for COVID will not be affected. Oh, isn't that convenient? So it doesn't end the emergency use authorization for the vaccine. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration said on Tuesday that when the Biden administration ends the emergency, existing emergency use authorizations for COVID vaccine tests or treatments will not be affected. and the agency may continue to issue emergency use authorizations, even though it's not an actual emergency. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Incredible. Well, wait a minute. But there isn't an emergency. So why can you continue to use it for emergency use? Oh, I don't know. It's confusing. I don't know, man. You have to forgive me. I'm not as intelligent as these FTA bureaucrats. Here, importantly, the ending of the public health emergency declared by HHS under the Public Health Service Act will not impact the ability to authorize devices, including tests, and vaccines for emergency use. Existing emergency use authorizations for products will remain in effect, and the agency may continue to issue new EUAs, which is emergency use authorization, as long as the criteria are met for issuance. But apparently one of the criterias is not an emergency. Since the start of COVID-19 public health emergency, delete that word, it has been allowed that the FDA to provide tools and flexibility to stakeholders. Yeah, in other words, we don't really care if it's an emergency or not. We just want to do it. In addition to the public health emergency, HHS has issued 2 other emergency declarations that provide broader access to medical measures for COVID. For instance, the emergency use authorization for tests and treatments are not tied to the public health emergency. Why not? Why aren't they? Shouldn't they be? Shouldn't the emergency use authorization be tied to the actual public health emergency? Is that too much to ask here? Am I living in bizarro world? Are we living in what world is this? But HHS will have to determine when the end of the declaration is that it allows their use. Many tests are available to the public under emergency use authorization, even when there isn't an emergency, though several have been granted more permanent marketing authorization by the FDA. A few therapeutics, including others, have been approved, and so these other drugs that we don't like to say here. HHS has also issued another declaration that provides liability immunity to pharmacists who administer, and that's set to expire October 2024. So all of the emergency declarations are ending except emergency use, which you can still use, and of course, liability immunity. Want to make sure that those stick around for a while. The White House weighed in because House Democrats were concerned about voting against the Republican legislation coming to the floor this week. We're going to go through that. They debated it all day today. Democrats were concerned about the optics of voting against Republicans, which is why the White House did this. They don't care about liberty or freedom or COVID or rights or pandemic or whatever that crap. They just didn't want to look bad politically. So they're ending it on Monday when the Republicans were about to debate it all today on Tuesday. As soon as we saw this bill, it obviously concerned the White House. So it was important for them to weigh in. The administration now argues that the bills are unnecessary because we're ending the emergencies anyways. Hey, let's just be friends about this. We don't need you to go in and strip all of our powers away. Don't pass these bills that are going to claw back a bunch of stuff. Just let us end it, right? We're just going to end it and we can all just be friends. No. To be clear, continuation of these emergencies does not impose any restriction at all on the conduct, the White House said. The White House said it would extend the COVID emergencies one final time in order to ensure an orderly wind down, saying that they've been incredibly successful and that a lot of these other policies are going to exist even after the May 11th date. So we'll see. Now, that is what they're planning on doing. The Republicans are not waiting around at all. And so we're going to turn our attention over to what is happening in the House. But what about student loans? Because student loans was a question that many people had. And remember, this was also being governed by the Department of Education, and they had all different justifications under other emergency uses. And so as you can see, right, the ending of the emergency in this case doesn't really end the emergency at all. It doesn't really matter. It's just a nice stupid headline from the Democrats, from the White House, because they're just going to say, oh, no, it's officially over on May 11th. Oh, cool. Well, does that mean that the EUA for the vaxes is also something that comes? No, doesn't. All right. Well, how about these other things? No, even student loans apparently is not going to be cut back short. Forbes reported this. They said, while the Biden administration has decided to end the COVID emergency this coming May, as reported by Politico, Officials have confirmed that this won't impact the current extension of the student loan pause, which could continue to the end of June. In other words, the pause won't be cut short early as a result of the official end of the emergency. So it's like, what does the end of the emergency end? Anything? Not really. We'll see. Now, Joe Biden was asked about this, obviously. He doesn't take many questions. And when he is sort of moseying over to the helicopter on the way out of the White House, he sometimes will engage strangely with the reporters on the side of the sidewalk. One of those experiences happened today. The President of the United States physically assaulted a journalist.
What's behind the decision to end the COVID emergency, Mr. President? What's behind your decision to end the COVID emergency?
The COVID emergency will end when the Supreme Court ends it. We've extended to May the 15th to make sure we get everything done. That's all. There's nothing behind the wall.
He just wanted to be dry. But he does all the touching is just a little strange with him. All right. So he does want to be dry. Now, again, that's just part of the story. We want to actually listen to what he said.
What's behind the decision to end the COVID emergency?
Question: what's behind the decision to end the COVID emergency?
What's behind your decision to end the COVID emergency?
The COVID emergency will end when the Supreme Court ends it. We've extended to May the 15th to make sure we get everything done.
Anybody have any idea what he just said?
Behind your decision to end the COVID emergency?
The COVID emergency will end when the Supreme Court ends it.
He said the COVID emergency is going to end when the Supreme Court ends it.
We've extended to May the 15th to make sure we get everything done. That's all. There's nothing behind the wall.
We've extended it to May 15th. Did he say?
It will end when the Supreme Court ends it. We've extended to May the 15th to make sure we get everything done. That's all. There's nothing behind the wall. All
right. So he's got 35 marbles in his mouth. I'm pretty sure he said May 15th. I think he said May 15th, but it's actually May 11th, evidently. So very difficult. And he says that the Supreme Court's going to end it when the Supreme Court ends it, even though he's also going to be ending it, but not really ending it. So very, very interesting things happening over there at the White House, which is why you can see the Congress is not waiting around for them to figure it out. So let's turn our attention over to some people in Congress. We'll start off with Representative Mary Miller from Illinois. She is going to introduce what Congress is doing for us. And of course, they're not waiting around. They're jumping right into it. Here is the Congresswoman.
Congresswoman Mary Miller here. I've got good news. This week, the House is going to vote to revoke Joe Biden's unconstitutional COVID powers, the powers that he doesn't want to give up. I'm very proud to join this effort, even though Joe Biden has promised to veto this bill after he declared that the pandemic is over. We're also going to vote to repeal the vaccine requirement on healthcare workers. And we're going to continue to investigate the Biden administration for the damage that they've done to our school children and for the unconstitutional vaccine mandates.
Right on, Mary. All right. So that's what they're doing over there. And they gathered together today in order to begin debating these new bills on the floor of this brand new Congress. And it started in one chamber, one committee, with a very interesting exchange between our friend James Comer and Jamie Raskin, who is formerly on the January 6th Select Committee. Mr. Comer, the chairman of the Oversight Committee, introduces the committee before he turns it over to minority member Mr. Raskin.
I yield to the distinguished gentleman from Maryland, Ranking Member Jamie Raskin, to introduce his members. But first, I want to publicly say, Mr. Raskin, we're all rooting for you. We know that you're going to win this battle. You're in our thoughts and prayers, and it's good to see you here today. I yield to Ranking Member Raskin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. It means a lot to me, and I've been gratified to receive so many kind words of encouragement and sympathy from colleagues on both sides of the aisle.
Good.
And I hope that these expressions of concern and solidarity will become seeds of friendship over the year. I certainly plan on getting through this thing and beating it, and I thank you for your patience and indulgence.
Right on. Right on. Right on. Cancer sucks. Cancer sucks 100%. So we'll be supporting Raskin through his battle through the cancer as we continue to hold him accountable for his takes in Congress. And Comer sounds like he'll do the same. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic as that unfolds throughout the rest of Congress. But Jamie Raskin, hopefully he gets well soon. Cancer sucks. All right. So we've got more debate coming up. We've got Sheila Jackson Lee, who says, all right, everybody, calm down. Okay. The pandemic is not over. We could all drop dead at any minute. We'll check in with Congresswomen from Florida, from Iowa, and Marjorie Taylor Greene over from Georgia, right after we talk about staying healthy and vibrant with our friends over from Brick House Nutrition, which is where you can get Field of Greens, because as you know, the pandemic is over. We've got some of those pandemic pounds, those holiday pounds, and I'm sure you're sick as I am, seeing all those ads for weight loss and fad diets, right? Been there, done that. They don't work. But you know what does? Eating healthy, 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, the weight probably falls right off. But A, vegetables, right? Not a fan. B, who has time to prepare for that every day? Great news. Let's talk about Field of Greens, real organic superfood. Field of Greens is a science-backed formula with specific fruits and vegetables you're not going to find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you can burn calories faster and lose weight the healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you're going to look healthier, feel great, but the best proof is going to come at your next checkup with your doctor when he says, wow, you've lost weight. What are you doing? You look fabulous. Keep it up. Let's get you started today. 15% off your first order. Visit fieldofgreens.com. Use promo code Robert to save that 15% off your first order at fieldofgreens.com, where you'll just be bursting with ultra mega green nutrition and feeling super good with your superfood at Brickhouse Nutrition. All right. And so now let's go back over to Congress. Sheila Jackson Lee does not like this new Republican-controlled House of Representatives. She's very upset that the pandemic might be declared over. She says that's not true at all. In fact, the pandemic is still raging on.
We lost 1 million people on not having that vaccination timely. And so I am struck by this legislation. The pandemic is not over. 500 people a day die right now as I'm standing here from COVID. That's a reasonable amount. I know there are other infectious diseases, but doesn't it make sense that if we can have a vaccine and a protocol that allows people to live, our children, those with pre-existing conditions, that we want them to do so? The Biden administration has announced that they intend to reduce this emergency pandemic or pandemic emergency, national emergency declaration in May. It'll allow our health facilities to get themselves.
All right. So the big sort of theme that came out today during the debates was about the time, right? The Republicans want this stuff done now. They want it ended now. And the Biden people are saying, well, we need 60 days and it's got to be pushed out for a long period of time. So put a pin in that. We're going to come back because Tom Massey is going to sort of dive into that. And why do we need all this time? Why shouldn't you have been sort of winding this down a long time ago? Right? It's always 60 more days or 90 more days or another 18 more months or whatever it is. It was supposed to be 15 days to slow the spread. Hello, it's 15, years later, it feels like. It's never ending. And so it's always another 60 days, another 60 days, another 60 days. Enough already. The Republicans are in charge and they're saying we're done with it. And so it starts with this. Republicans respond. We have Representative Carmack over from Florida. She takes the podium and she says, all right, enough. It is over. We've had enough of this stuff and it's time to put an end to it.
I will yield 2 minutes to my friend from Florida, Ms. Carmack.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong support of H.R. 382, the Pandemic is Over Act. I want to thank my friend and colleague from Kentucky, Mr. Brett Guthrie, for leading this important effort. This action is long overdue. This week we are voting on several bills designed to do what we all in America have known for some time, that the emergency declaration should be gone away. Constituents have been asking, heck, demanding that we end this perpetual state of COVID emergencies in the federal government and get back to normal. More than 4 months ago, President Biden declared that the COVID-19 pandemic was over. Yet, interestingly, the federal emergency declaration, it's still in place. It makes you wonder, why would the president declare that the pandemic is over, but not officially rescind the emergency declaration?
Loves that
in
COVID
fact,
money.
Many of our colleagues
Loves
on the
that
other side of
power.
the aisle seem more concerned with keeping the public health emergency in place rather than addressing the problems we are now being faced with. Things like investigating the estimated $163 billion with a B in COVID unemployment fraud and recovering those funds that were stolen from the American taxpayers.
Billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in COVID fraud. Gone. Just evaporated. Where'd it go?
Or the approximately $150 billion in unobligated funds that's just sitting there for COVID. That's a pretty easy way to start reducing spending. Or how about the approximately $500 billion that's been obligated but hasn't been pushed out the door yet? Ask yourselves, who benefits from the emergency declaration remaining in place?
Democrats.
It is a fact that the continuation of the public health emergency
government.
is costing taxpayers billions of dollars and worsening already crippling inflation. Inflation which is costing Florida families in my district an estimated $10,000 extra a year in basic goods and services. I don't know anyone who can afford an extra 10 grand a year. The federal mandates like this have increased private health insurance costs and grossly exacerbated the ever-increasing national debt that will be passed on to my generation, our children, and our grandchildren. It's time to get our kids back to school, folks back to work, and life back to normal. It's time for us to turn the page and end the COVID-19 public health emergency powers. Let's get back to common sense fixes to our healthcare system. Let's get back to work on lowering energy costs. Let's get back to work, and let's get back to work in person. I yield.
Yes, end it. All right. Shout out to Kat. Very nice delivery there. You used a full amount of time. Pandemic is over. Enough of this stuff already. And it's true. Did you hear that announcement from the person holding the gavel? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Did he just say the gentlewoman is recognized in that clip? Eddie Oliver says, I thought we can't even define it that. He was an oppressive patriarch. It's true. I'm glad that you noticed that. Did she notify him about her proper introductory pronoun welcome phrases? I don't know. It's good to see you, Eddie Oliver. Thank you for the super chat. Very good question. Let's see how he does it with her. Representative Marionette Miller. She hails from Iowa, and she is somebody with what apparently is some nice background as a medical person. And she says, yeah, it's over. Enough of this stuff.
Speaker is recognized.
He called her speaker, not gentlewoman. Very curious on that one. Good eye there, Eddie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Guthrie, for yielding me time. As both a physician and the former director of the Iowa Department of Public Health, I agree with what President Biden said in September of last year. The pandemic is over. More specifically, even though SARS-CoV-2 is still circulating, it's endemic, the public health emergency is and should be over. I'm proud to support H.R. 382, which acknowledged the truth of the president's words and finally put an end to the public health emergency. When COVID-19 first reached our shores, the Public Health Emergency Declaration was a tool that helped our country to mobilize, develop testing, develop vaccines, and to distribute PPE and institute our manufacturing sector.
I guess.
However, this emergency declaration is no longer needed, and instead of putting an end to it, the president has continually renewed it with no end in sight. For example, we have already extended telehealth for 2 years. From mask mandates and vaccine mandates to extending Medicaid expansion to previously ineligible participants and student loan forgiveness, the president and this administration are using the public health emergency to expand government overreach. What's irresponsible is not putting a transition in place during this past year.
Right now.
I urge my colleagues to support H.R.
Gentleman's
382
time
and
has
put an end to
expired.
this outdated, bloated government overreach. Thank you, and I yield back.
Do you hear that guy coughing in the background as they're talking about COVID? Now, there was some bad audio on that one, but her point was right. I think she's dead right about that. She said specifically that this was a tool that was useful at one period in time. Now, you could say whether that was debatable or not, whether that was useful or not, right? The government, in my opinion, meddled a lot more than they should have. They probably caused a lot more harm than otherwise would have happened if they would have just let us all deal with it. but they caused a lot of issues. She says, okay, it was relevant at one point, not relevant anymore. I'm a medical doctor. I know exactly how this stuff works, so take my advice. And our final clip on the debate before we turn our attention over to Thomas Massie comes from Marjorie Taylor Greene. And there were several different sort of facets that they were arguing about. But another theme that we saw from the Democrats was about the right to choose and about how Republicans, they're talking about all of these mandates as being problematic, but they don't care about a woman's right to choose. And so why don't, if they're so hypocritical on that issue, how can they have any credibility on this issue? And Marjorie Taylor Greene responds to that.
Ms. Greene.
Gentlelady is recognized.
I rise in support for the Freedom of Healthcare Workers Act, and I'd like to take a minute to reflect on what one of my colleagues was talking about across the aisle, and that is about having the ability to choose when it comes to abortion. But yet, here's mandates that have been forced on our healthcare workers since the vaccines have been introduced through the Democrats and through the Biden administration, and it's been devastating for our healthcare industry. And it's pretty hypocritical to talk about abortion rights for healthcare workers and the workplace when they're completely against the ability of healthcare workers, who I would call the experts, doctors and nurses and people that work in the healthcare field. They have the right to choose when it comes to the vaccines. Mandates are tyrannical and they need to end. The COVID pandemic is over, and I'm glad Republicans are making sure that we declare that this week on the House floor. I'd also like to point out that we have a severe shortage of healthcare workers, many of whom were heroes that worked on the front lines saving lives throughout this pandemic, who have said they don't want a vaccine, they do not want to take it, and they want to trust their own natural immunity. We need to give these healthcare workers the right to choose their natural immunity and not be forced to take a jab or a vaccine that they know they do not need and they do not want. We believe in freedom here in the Republican conference. We believe in freedom for Americans. We believe in freedom for the healthcare workers of this country, and I yield back.
Nice statement from Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying that the mandates devastated the industry, and I think a lot of people would agree with that in different parts of the healthcare industry. And of course, right, as we're talking about all of this stuff, right, make sure that you are following the CDC guidelines and the World Health Organization guidelines and all of those things. I just say that for the YouTube guidelines, the YouTube rules out there. But, it is curious now because we're going to see whether or not this is acceptable by the CDC now, right? Is the CDC also going to come out and declare that the pandemic is over? Is that going to be official guidance now? The White House said it's over. Does the science match the White House statements, Because we have to adhere to the CDC and to the World Health Organization. So what is it? Is the CDC official now too? Is the World Health Organization agree with the White House? I don't know. So as always, our YouTube censor is always screaming at me about the COVID rules. And so, check with whatever the World Health Organization and the CDC says. But Marjorie Taylor Greene and a lot of these other representatives seem to say the pandemic's over. They agree with Joe Biden. He says the pandemic's over. The White House themselves made it official policy that the pandemic is going to be over in May. I don't know if the science is going to catch up to that announcement, though, or if they know something like, does something like expire on something on the May 11th? I don't know. Science is very complicated. Obviously, I don't understand it. Let's see if Thomas Massie can help us explain why the pandemic suddenly ends on a certain date and why it has to be 60 days from now.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
As the second sponsor of this bill, I'm very excited to see it moving here in Congress. It is long overdue. And the other side of the aisle walked into this room tonight fully prepared to be diametrically opposed to it. But the administration threw him a curveball. The administration is in full retreat at this moment, and so they have to retreat with the administration.
They're trying to preempt the Republicans, right? They came out on a Monday knowing that the public is really sick of COVID stuff, knowing the Republicans are going to catch a big windfall if they're allowed to capture this issue. And so they tried to preempt them and try to pre-butt them before they even got off the ground.
I believe the administration would not have done this tonight. I mean, if you think it's a coincidence, I think you're a coincidence theorist. It is no coincidence that while we were debating these very measures, the executive branch went into full retreat on this. They're actually trying to save, I think, the other side of the aisle from taking a tough vote, saving some face so that they can vote against it because, well, the timing's not right.
Yeah, and this is what matches that CNN article that we already read through. They said that Democrats were pounding on the door of the White House, sort of panicked about this, saying, what are we going to do? We got to go in there and vote to continue COVID in our districts? We're going to get slaughtered on this thing. So the White House made an about-face rapidly.
And then there was the argument made tonight on this bill and the one preceding it that does something similar, that we should wait until we have committees formed. The American people cannot wait another week. They cannot wait another day. Livelihoods have been ruined. So many people have suffered because this has gone on too long. The president said, what was it, to CBS 60 Minutes months ago, that the pandemic is over. And now he's saying, well, we need just 60 more days.
Broken
60
records.
more days.
For 3 years.
To pull this off. Now that you all have this idea that we should end it, I think I'll end it, and I need 60 days. I would like to ask Mr. Larson, the president in his statement of administrative policy says he needs 60 days. He wants to honor his previous commitment to give at least 60 days notice prior to termination. Why is he then going to go 100 days from now to do it? What's the...
If they need 60 days from now, why not just go 60 days from now? Why are we going to May?
Spoke to the president about that. My guess is that since the national emergency order signed by the previous president was on March 13th, 2020, that about 60 days from March 13th is around May 11th, and that'd be my only speculation. So I'll give it a try.
I'm trying to. I see that the thing...
They just picked a date. They just threw a date at a dartboard, and they said, that sounds good. Just start it.
Are going to expire on March 1st and April 11th. So if he's going 60 days from April 11th, April, help me out here.
Mr. Chair, I wasn't told there would be math.
April,
That's my kind of fella.
May, June. 60 days from April.
Somebody get a
11th
calendar.
June 11th, I think.
And a slide
Maybe
rule.
June 10th.
And a
then,
calculator.
March 1st, 60 days from that, it'd be April, it'd be May 1st. So I don't know, I'm having a problem with the math. I don't think this has ever been about math. I don't think it's ever been about science. I think it's been about politics. And I would just say, you know, we don't need to beat a dead horse that all these mandates and all these emergency things, they're dead. But elections have consequences. If you're watching this tonight, or you watch the vote tomorrow, and you see that the White House is in full retreat on this issue, it's because he's lost the confidence of the American people on this issue, and he knows it. We should have had a vote on this emergency. We should have had a vote on I know your topic's not the mandates, but we talked about it tonight. We should have Congress should have been voting on this. We should have been.
All the time. They didn't do any of that. They just gobbled up power. Remember when the CDC came out and they said, oh yeah, your property, you know, your property that you own, that like you have renters in and stuff like that, it's not your property anymore. It's our property. You can't throw people out. Remember when you had problems with what was happening in schools and you sort of to object to it, or you objected to the mandates or the threats to your job and your livelihood, and there were idiots all over the place screaming, jumping around, dancing on people's graves, having fun with it, saying, well, maybe if you were somebody who was sophisticated and followed the science, you just get jabbed 37 times like the rest of us, right? On and on and on. Nobody voted for any of it. They all just did it under emergency, this, that, or the other. And they've been doing it for 3 years. And every time we get to the end of the line, they need another 60 days. Another 60 days for 3 years.
And having hearings, but we couldn't have them. And so forgive us, Mr. Chairman, please, and ranking member, if it seems like we're moving too quickly, because the American people think we're moving too slowly. And I would suggest that these bills probably don't go far enough. The next thing that needs to happen is to remove the emergency use authorization for some of this. I call it medical malpractice martial law.
Martial
People
law.
are, actually, I have a constituent. She went into the hospital for a test. They stuck the swab so far up her nose, they punctured the membrane that keeps your brain fluid in, and it leaked into her throat. They had to do surgery to fix it. She hired an attorney, and he said, I'm sorry, we can't help you because of the PrEP Act. So it doesn't just apply to vaccines right now. It applies to the masks you wear. It applies to that. You have to prove somebody willfully tried to hurt you. So in order to claim any damages under this medical malpractice martial law that we're living in, and I hope pretty soon, after we get HJ Res 7 done, and after we get the other things done, that will end something that's gone on way too long, which is the boot of the federal government on the American people, saying it's in the name of their own good, when in fact it's not in their own good. I hope as soon as we get this done, we move on to all the other things that need to end. And with that, I yield back.
Mr. Larson, to your
Horrific, right? No liability. None of that's apparently going to end. So any problems from any of the medical procedures that are covered under the PrEP Act, Tom Massey says there's complexities there that are going to continue to protect people. And so we have questions, right? Where are the lines? What does the ending of the pandemic, according to the White House, actually mean if a lot of the EUAs and a lot of these other pandemic excuses can't also expire? They keep the power, but they end it officially? How does that work? Well, of course, we will continue to cover it, and I hope you join us as we do. Thank you for liking this video and subscribing to make sure you don't miss the next one, and we will continue to follow. I look forward to seeing you as we do. Let's go over to our second segment now and turn our attention over to the Biden documents, because there's a lot more to dig into. We're learning more. Secret searches of the Penn Biden Center revealed from what was supposedly one of the most transparent administrations ever. They told us everything about this scandal, except they didn't. And every day that goes by, more and more drips out. This story comes over from CBS, and they tell us the following. Published on January 31st at 10:58 a.m. They write, the FBI searched the Penn Biden Center in mid-November. This was the first location where the documents were found. Remember, the documents were originally found back on November 2nd, supposedly by one of Biden's lawyers. We still don't know exactly who that person was. But then it got turned over to the DOJ, and there were several subsequent things that happened. We had another batch of documents discovered in December. We didn't learn about any of this until after the midterm elections in November 8th, after the change of the year, until Karine Jean-Pierre finally revealed it to us after CBS, this same news entity, published the story. But now we learn more. From Washington, the FBI searched the Penn Biden offices in mid-November. This comes from two sources familiar with the investigation. Lawyers originally found the documents in November. It's not clear whether FBI personnel found any additional classified or presidential material during the mid-November sweep, right? So we don't know. We don't know if they found anything. And there was additional searching going on at this same time at the Wilmington residence, okay? We have parallel tracks now on our timeline that we have to map out, because they were prosecuting or investigating the Penn Biden Center. They didn't search the Wilmington residence until very recently in January of this year. Two sources told CBS News that the search was conducted with the cooperation of Biden's representatives, no search warrant. Biden used the 6th floor office space near the Capitol periodically. FBI searched the think tank. It was not previously disclosed by the White House. They've been telling us that they've been transparent. Karine Jean-Pierre has said, look, we've been transparent about this. The president takes these documents seriously. If you have any questions about this, I refer you to the White House counsel. Like a broken record on repeat for the last several weeks. Mr. Biden's personal lawyers or the DOJ, nobody disclosed it to any of us. Again, another leak from CBS reveals the truth. A January 14th statement from the president's personal attorney, Bob Bauer, referred to the government conducting, quote, its inquiry, including taking possession of documents surrounding material for further review and context. When the FBI conducted a consensual search of Biden's home in Wilmington this month, January 20th, Bauer and the White House announced it the following day. Oh, that's weird. So we have sort of a standard procedure in this case. When the FBI searched Wilmington, Biden's lawyers told us the day after, which is what they should have done from the very beginning, right? Tell us the day after. Mike Pence found documents, told us, published the letter, came out the next day. We talked about this yesterday on the show, and he said, I accept responsibility for this, right? The buck stops with me. So why didn't Bauer in the White House, if they announced the January 20th search, why didn't they also announce the mid-November search? Oh, that's right, because they were covering it up. Obviously, personal attorneys from Biden declined to comment. He's the sitting president, and that's just what they have been getting away with for several years, or for several weeks now, months now. The Justice Department and the FBI declined to comment. White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield responded to questions about the FBI search. She said, that's not something I can comment on. The whole executive branch is force fielding the whole situation. She said, that's something you're going to have to talk to the Justice Department about. She's sort of like the store brand Karine Jean-Pierre. What I can say is that we have been cooperative and transparent at the outset. No, you haven't. And in fact, this article that is quoting you, Kate, is explaining that. It says that nobody's commenting on that, so not transparent there. And this was not previously disclosed by the White House. Okay, so somebody should reference this to Miss Kate Bedingfield and tell her. Transparency means being transparent and openly disclosing things. You have not done that in this case, so you don't get to continue to say that. We put multiple statements from the president's personal attorney describing the process and being clear that the president takes this seriously. Yeah, it's like one robot, just move the chips around. In all, federal authorities have recovered between 25 and 30 documents marked classified. And we don't even know if that's the truth, right? Because every time we get a statement, they say, well, the last theory was that they were boxes containing documents, right? Or a document might have multiple pages in it. Or it might be a binder full of documents. The material includes classified items and other items from the presidential and the Senate days. And when you're in the Senate and you're not on the Intelligence Committee, you're in a lower echelon of power and privilege. So you don't have the ability to just sort of walk out with documents. So the next question that we heard from Ted Cruz and others was, how did Biden leave with the documents? Lawyers for Biden and the DOJ agreed on the parameters of the January 20th search. We don't know anything about the mid-November search. FBI had full access to everything. Special counsel was appointed. We know that date. Trump has claimed the material. All right, so you have the battle on this back and forth. Now, this is what we learn. And so we've got two big questions, right? One is obviously who initiated those searches. And I have a question about like we still have questions about the original search on November 2nd. What prompted that? Why did those lawyers just start rummaging around in a very specific area that just happened to find documents just pop up out of nowhere? Like a jack in the box, confidential document. And then they lied about it, right? By omission. They didn't tell us about any of it. They've been promising us transparency, but they neglected to tell us about another mid-November search, right? They're dripping this stuff out. This is not a mistake. This is intentional. Rather than telling us all of this stuff was going on behind the scenes, they want to piecemeal it so it doesn't look as bad. Now, it is bad. It's a big, big problem. And in fact, Congress is now starting to speak up. We've already played clips here of Senators Mark Warner, who's a Democrat, and Marco Rubio, who's a Republican, who have been up in arms about this, saying that the Intelligence Committee in the Senate has constitutional obligations to engage in oversight over the intelligence apparatus. I wish they actually did that. I wish there was actual oversight over the FBI, over the CIA, right, over DHS, over all of these institutions. I would love to see it. Actual oversight by Democrats. I'd be okay with that. Not Adam Schiff, okay? Not Republicans like Liz Cheney, who are basically extensions of the intelligence apparatus. I'd like real, actual oversight. And I don't care who does it, as long as it's actual accountability and transparency and justice. Mitch McConnell would like to see some accountability too. He wants to see the documents. And a lot of the time on this channel, we listen to Mitch, and he's kind of like a turtle. He's very slow, doesn't say anything. We're constantly waiting for his opinion. You know, he's a very powerful dude. He's been in government, I think, as long as Joe Biden. He just hasn't ascended to the presidency yet. We'll see. So he is somebody we want to hear from on a whole range of issues, and he very regularly opines, especially on controversial stuff. He'd rather talk about, flooding. But he got asked about the Biden documents today. You're going to see him fired up a little bit. You're going to see him use statements like reasonable, and you're going to hear words from him, and you're going to know, Mitch McConnell's pissed right now. So put the kids to bed if they don't want to see Cocaine Mitch cocained out. Do you see that sniff? Watch this. See?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. The mind-boggling pace of the Senate at the beginning of this year is certainly astonishing. I don't think I've ever seen a slower beginning at the start of a new Congress in the Senate, but we're not in the majority, and so I'll let Senator Schumer, when he comes back, answer that question.
Wow.
With regard to the...
All right, so for those of you who don't know, he just blasted Schumer on that, right? The Democrats. I don't know what the hell they're doing over there. But it's out of control. Now, that might sound like, pretty benevolent. It's kind of like, what did he just say? He kind of mumbled through his mouth. That's as fired up as Mitch gets, all right? This is level 10, and we're just warming up here. It's about to get rowdy.
Searches for classified documents. I think the bipartisan request of Chairman Warner and Vice Chairman Rubio is entirely reasonable.
Whoa.
What they're asking for here would not interfere with these ongoing criminal investigations.
Whoa.
And I hope the administration will come up with a better answer.
Whoa.
No, which is apparently what both the chairman and the vice chairman were told recently.
You see her, and she's nodding her head. She knows that Mitch is pissed right now. Apparently, the White House just, there's a very reasonable request that was made, and the answer was no. And it's so insane that even this senator is like, yeah, it's true. There's going to be a murder in Congress if we don't rectify this situation.
What they're asking for here would not interfere with these ongoing criminal investigations.
No, sir. No, it wouldn't.
And I hope the administration will come up with a better answer.
Me too.
No, which is apparently what both the chairman and the vice chairman were told recently. Their request to find out exactly what kind of documents were in improper custody seems to me squarely within their oversight mission on the Intel Committee, and I want to commend both of them for pursuing this in a bipartisan way.
Oh my gosh. Out of control. Out of control. Did you see that? Holy moly. That's Mitch McConnell. He's putting everybody on blast. Look at this hand gesture here. He says, he's explaining to all of us, this is squarely within their jurisdiction. And I hope we can figure this out.
Were in improper custody seems to me squarely within their oversight mission on the Intel Committee, and I want to commend both of them for pursuing this in a bipartisan way.
Brutal, savage, man, brutal. Murders all over the place. All right, so now okay, you can bring the kids back. Absolutely out of control. Cocaine Mitch was coked out hardcore, and I told you it was going to be crazy. Like level 11. You're not going to see anything else like that recently. So Whew. All right, let's brace ourselves, bring ourselves back down to level. All right, now let's turn our attention over to Mr. Comer. Comer made an appearance on with Fox News, and he is, of course, leading the Oversight Committee. We've got Jim Jordan, who's on the Judiciary Committee. We have Cocaine Mitch in the Senate, and we've got James Comer on Oversight. And he is leading the charge. We've read so many letters from James Comer over the last couple days. It's been really enjoyable. And there's going to be a lot more coming because he's just getting warmed up. Here he is on Fox and Friends or Fox News, and he's talking about exactly what they're working on over there on the Oversight Committee. Let's check in.
We're bringing in the National Archives tomorrow for a transcribed interview. We're going to ask all of these questions, and hopefully we'll have some answers for the American people very soon.
Is it good? That's the head librarian, the National Archives. They're coming in for that transcribed interview. Remember, we were reading the letters back and forth. We read his letter to them, and we read her letter back to us. Deborah Stidel-Wall, who said that we're not really going to be cooperative all that much. Evidently, they're sitting down and they're doing this interview.
Normal for VPs to take their notebooks with them when they leave office?
No, nothing that Joe Biden's done with respect to mishandling these classified documents is normal. Take into consideration that he's also being investigated for influence peddling with our adversaries around the world. And it's even more concerning. Look, more information comes out every day where his son, especially, as well as his two brothers, have had shady business dealings with our adversaries around the world. And part of what they would do when they would make a pitch to these shady characters in these foreign countries is prove to them that they actually had direct access to their brother and that they had direct access to people at the highest levels of our federal government. So, well, when we learned that Joe Biden had classified documents strode all over the place and that Hunter Biden especially lived in his house where he had those classified documents, we became extra concerned. And that's why this investigation is of the utmost importance for the United States Congress as well as the American people.
You know, that gets us to...
There's another story that is sort of percolating that there may be this notebook problem that Joe Biden has as well. So, you know, an idea is that you have the classified documents, they're marked classified, they're stuff that maybe you check out and you return back, but they contain information, right? The document itself, yeah, it's a container for information. The information in there is very valuable. So if you take a look at the classified materials and then transcribe them into a notebook that doesn't have classified materials written on there, that's a problem, right? Because now you have the inability to have sort of chain of custody over that particular information, not necessarily the document. So there's a theory that Joe Biden had notebooks that maybe were not classified documents, but they contained classified information because this was all just transcribed or it was summaries from the classified materials. Pretty big problem there. And as we've already covered here on this channel, there's been several stories and several bits and pieces where we've seen emails from Hunter Biden going over to some very interesting characters where he's sort of summarizing reports that seem like they came from intelligence briefings, right? That's not me saying that. That is Ron Johnson.
Joe Biden, the laptop happens to contain a significant amount of evidence that would not only implicate the Biden family in influence peddling, but it would also implicate the President of the United States. We want to have this hearing to begin with to show the American people what evidence is on the laptop. We want to show the American people that the federal government tried to suppress this story, that the FBI, according to the Twitter files, and these three former Twitter employees are going to have an opportunity to explain exactly what happened,
Beautiful.
came in and misled big tech, telling them that this was Russian disinformation. Now, I think it's no secret, we've heard this from Elon Musk, that the overwhelming majority of Twitter employees, like all big tech employees, are overwhelmingly liberal, therefore they're biased. But my problem isn't as much with big tech as it is with the federal government. You know, why was the federal government trying to suppress this story? And we want to go into the details of the laptop. But we've heard CBS, they came out and said that they did a forensic audit and that the contents on the laptop are authentic. We know that several other networks like CNN are finally getting on board expressing concern about what's on the laptop. So we're starting from the very beginning with this first hearing, which is the laptop. We're going to prove that the government tried to cover this up from day one. Then we're going to proceed. We'll bring in some of the associates of the Biden family influence peddling schemes, and we'll keep going to where we bring in people from the government to see what role exactly the president played in this influence peddling.
And influence peddling is a very interesting phrase, an interesting scheme. And we're going to see what Comer is able to dig up, because it does feel like the government is colluding or covering some of this stuff up, including the Department of the Treasury. We see over from Bloomberg that they are denying access to the Hunter docs, and the House of Representatives is responding. So a letter just got fired back from another congressperson, and he says, all right, well, we're coming after you then, IRS. We're going to try to identify whistleblowers from you. We'll dig into all of that right after we talk about survival food and survival gear, because it's very good to be prepared. As you know, a food shortage could be coming, even in the United States. We've got drought, inflation, economic policies, war. America's food supply is near its breaking point. And that's why survival food is more important now than ever. And you can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits. It's not ordinary food. We're talking about good for 25 years, super survival food, hand-packed right in family-owned facilities in the United States, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water resistant, they stack easily. Different delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and use code Robert to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including this 90-day food supply that you can go grab right now. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on anything over $97. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. And so go to 4patriots.com, use code Robert to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com, and start building your own stockpile today, my friends. All right, and let's check out now what is happening with Treasury, because the Department of Treasury is telling us the GOP is not getting access to anything. They tell us, published on January 25th, that the request from Republicans for Hunter Biden's records is denied. The U.S. Treasury Department refused to provide House Republicans any suspicious activity reports. Those are called SARs, that it may have on foreign banking and other business transactions by Hunter Biden. Interesting, huh? Jonathan Davidson, Treasury's legislative affairs chief, told House Oversight Committee James Comer in a letter that he needs more details about why the panel is seeking highly sensitive information. Comer sent a letter over to them saying that they need the SARs used by banks to flag what are dubious transactions as part of his panel's probe into investigating whether the president's son was involved in overseas business dealings. Said that without acknowledging whether the reports exist, said that this is improper disclosure and it could undermine the executive branch's ability to do their duties. Comer responded, and after receiving more details, they said, well, send us more information and Treasury will then make determinations about how to accommodate your requests while balancing against the executive branch interests. So, you know, the executive branch and the Department of Treasury, right? They're one, right? The Department of Treasury, and it's all under the executive branch. And so the executive branch is saying, okay, well, if you need the IRS, if you need these things to be investigated, we have to weigh our needs against the legislative needs, and we're going to, this is checks and balances in action. The problem is you've got a very, very interesting conflict of interest here when the president and his son are the subject of the investigation. They can stonewall that pretty well, and they can put, the guards up, the force field up, and just blame it on partisan politics. Comer said the panel is going to continue to request the reports, and they will use the power of the gavel to get them if needed. And it's going to continue to go forward. So we'll follow, of course. But the House of Representatives is already fighting back in a fun way. They sent this letter on the same day that story was published, and they're writing to the IRS. They're writing as follows. They say, look, On January 25th, from the Committee on Ways and Means out of the U.S. House of Representatives, this letter goes over to the IRS, our favorite government agency. Love the IRS here. They do great work. We pay our taxes. Huge fans of the IRS. Huge fans. Love taxes. Definitely not theft of our life and livelihood. Anyways, they get a letter. So this comes out from Jason Smith, the chairman on Committee on Ways and Means. Says, Dear Acting Commissioner and IRS employees. Okay, so Congress is sending this to all the IRS employees out there who are definitely legitimate and have a totally legitimate job. The Committee on Ways and Means, they say, take its oversight responsibilities seriously. They say the top priorities in the 110th Congress is to promote transparency and accountability by conducting rigorous oversight of government agencies. And we're trying to identify fraud, waste, and abuse. Employees of the executive branch are undoubtedly individuals who possess the most knowledge about any misconduct occurring in their agencies. And Jason says, that's why I write to notify you and every single employee of the IRS about a very new tool that we have now launched called the IRS Whistleblower Portal, which is now active and available on our website. You can just go over to www.waysandmeans.house.gov/IRS whistleblower. This portal provides an avenue through which agency employees can now easily communicate and share information directly and confidentially with the committee about nefariousness in the IRS. We welcome and encourage IRS employees, and I do too, I encourage this too, to use this portal to share any information they believe should be brought to the attention of the committee as it conducts its oversight responsibilities. Such information can include concerns, information, or documents related to misconduct, maladministration, abuse, mistreatment of taxpayers, which is everybody on this show, whether you know it or not, wrongdoing, or any other agency matter an employee believes that deserves our attention. We request a copy of this letter be shared with all IRS employees to ensure they're notified of this portal and it's available for them to use. We ask that agency leadership confirm this letter has been shared with all agency employees by February 8th, 2023. So they want confirmation that the whole thing gets sent out. Can you let us know that you CC'd all the people at the IRS that they got this? Just to make sure they know they can go over to the portal. And so let's take a look at the portal just so we can make sure that it works and it exists. Let's see here. Yeah, so it works. So you could go right over here to Ways and Means at house.gov and you could type in, Rob Govea, and you could say, my email is as follows. And you could say, the IRS has touched me inappropriately in my bank account, right? Something like that. And you could submit your file and you could get that all, taken care of. Now, only use it for legitimate complaints, obviously, right? Because we want them to not be inundated with, fake tips. But it is true. Right? Anytime that somebody gets touched by the federal government in one way, shape, or form, it comes from one of two places. We know this. One, the criminal justice system, obviously. The other is the IRS, all right? Anytime they bring that doll out and they say, where'd the government touch you? And okay, where? Okay, that's a bad place. Who touched you? Who was it? You say, it was the IRS who did it. And it's really a scary thing. It's IRS or it's usually the Justice Department. It's one of the two. So Congress is taking it back to IRS. And if you happen to know anybody in the IRS who is an employee over there, right, this new tool exists. It's available over there on the website. And so they should use it regularly to report the nonsense that's going on. Now, Jim Jordan is also coming in hot. So there are going to be some additional hearings that are going to be percolating. The Hill tells us the House GOP is set to rev its engine with its first investigatory hearings. This story was published on January 31st of this year. They tell us that the Republicans are going to push their long-planned investigations into the spotlight this week. We're talking border, we're talking COVID, and we're going to see how the Republicans are using their new power. They're also going to be launching the Biden Border Crisis Part 1. That's going to be brought to us by Jim Jordan. The Oversight Committee is also going to be leading a lot of this. Kevin McCarthy's preparing. Next week, the Oversight Panel is going to hold a hearing on the U.S.-Mexico border. Also, former Twitter employees about the Hunter Biden hard drive. All of this is coming out. Oversight Panel taking action on an extensive probe. We've got a revived Oversight Committees talking about probes of the virus, origin of the virus. Oversight, Judiciary, Intelligence Committees, Foreign Affairs Committees, all revisiting the Afghanistan withdrawal. Ultimate showstopper could be a select committee on the weaponization of government, which is hosting a church-style committee to investigate the intelligence committees. Oh my gosh, it's going to be like Christmas all year. Comer is hoping that these will have a sense of urgency and that will have a lot of eyeballs. Of course, we will be paying attention to those. So the pressure is on the White House. There's going to be a lot of response and sort of counter punches. We'll see. Let's ask ourselves what the White House has to say about this. Joe Biden, again, took very limited questions on his way over to his helicopter. One question was about the documents. Mr. President, what do you think about the special counsel? Do you think he responded to that?
If the special counsel who's starting to take ask for your testimony, would you give testimony?
Waves it away. Just waves it away. Anything about the special counsel? I don't know anything about that.
If the special counsel who's starting to take ask for your testimony, would you give testimony?
Mr. President,
That's the answer. Okay, so when Karine Jean-Pierre comes out later in the week and says, no, the president takes questions on this. He stopped by the reporters the other day, right? That's what he says. Anything about the special counsel? I don't know anything about the special counsel. Get out of here. And we'll see how that holds up. I'm sure Karine's going to have her hands full, and we will continue to cover the Biden document saga. Thank you for subscribing and liking this video wherever it is you're watching it, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. So let's turn our attention to our final segment of the day involving the DOJ and Jim Jordan. The Department of Justice denies Jim Jordan access to some very interesting records. We've got several letters we will take a look at. The first is from Jim Jordan. He sent this one back on January 13, 2023, and it relates to the investigation of the Biden documents. Coming from Congress on January 13th, drafted to the Honorable Merrick Garland, and coming from our friend Jim Jordan. He is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the new Congress. And he says, all right, listen, Mayor, a couple things we're going to need here. We're conducting oversight of your institution, in particular regarding Vice President Biden's mishandling of documents at an office in Penn Biden Center, as well as his location in Wilmington, Delaware. On January 12th, you appointed Robert Hur, special counsel, to investigate these matters. We expect complete cooperation with our inquiry because the circumstances of this appointment of Robert Hur, the special counsel, raise fundamental oversight questions that we routinely examine. On November 2nd, days before the midterm election, President Biden's personal attorneys reportedly, quote, discovered classified documents at the Penn Biden Center, a think tank that he opened in February 2018. According to reports, Biden's attorneys found several documents with classified markings. Some documented even sensitive compartmented information. They found these documents in unsecured spaces, suggesting the mishandling of the most sensitive intelligence information the U.S. government has. Subsequent reports tell us these were classified documents, including U.S. intelligence memos, briefing materials, and covering topics including Ukraine, Iran, and the UK. The classified documents were dated between 2013 and 16, which suggests that they were stored at this location for years. Subsequently, a second set of documents were found, and we know a third set, and basically a fourth set and a fifth set. It's unclear, says Jim Jordan, when the department first came to learn about the existence of these documents. And this was drafted on January 13th. Remember that according to our timeline, we had some announcements on the 12th, and Robert Hur was appointed on the 12th. He says that some of this was concealed. On the date of the announcement of the appointment, we had questions about the sequence of events. On November 2nd, we know the documents were found. At Penn Biden Center, they find the documents. Oh my gosh, there's classified materials. Who should we call? I don't know. Better call our client, right? Doesn't a lawyer call their client first? So Joe Biden had to know about it. At some point, they got to talk to the client, right? I mean, he's not that far gone. Jill, does he have a power of attorney or somebody else making these decisions for him? I don't know. But the point is, it goes to the White House, and then it rumbles around over there for a little bit. They call the National Archives. They rumble around a little bit until it goes over to the DOJ. At what point did that happen? When did you guys learn about it? And did you actively conceal this information to the public on the eve of the 2020 elections? Yes, they did. It is also unclear what interactions, if any, the department had with President Biden or his representatives about this stuff. The department's actions here appear to depart from how it acted in similar circumstances. In fact, on August 8th, despite publicly available evidence of Trump's voluntary cooperation multiple times, you personally approved the decision to seek a warrant for excessive and unprecedented access to a former president's private residence. On October 15th, committee Republicans wrote to you and FBI Director Wray requesting documents and information related to the raid of Trump. The department and you at the FBI have failed to sufficiently comply with our requests, and we're in charge now. And so we deserve transparency and accountability from our most senior executive branch law enforcement officials. And accordingly, please produce the following. 1, everything about Robert Hur, everything about John Lausch, the first U.S. attorney who was appointed to the case, all the materials about the FBI investigating Wilmington and Penn Biden Center, all documents about the attorneys involved in the case, Richard Sauber. Is Bob Bauer in here? They may not have even known about Bob Bauer at the time. All documents about the physical storage at the Penn Biden Center or Wilmington, all documents about communication, about how they discovered this. How did the attorneys even come into this information in the first place? Amazing. They say, please give this to us no later than January 27th. Sincerely, your friends from Congress, Jim Jordan and Mike Johnson. Now, they responded. The DOJ responded. That letter came out on the following. The DOJ responds, Carlos Uriarte drafting the response on January 30th, 2023, signed digitally. He is the Assistant Attorney General representing the DOJ. He writes back to Jim Jordan. He says, from the Office of Legislative Affairs over at the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of the Assistant Attorney General in Washington, they say the Honorable Jim Jordan, Chairman, Committee of the Judiciary, as well as the Honorable Mike Johnson, Representative. They say, all right, dear Representative Congresspeople, we got your letter from January 13th, the one that we just read, about your investigation and about our investigation of the possible unauthorized removal and retention of classified documents at the Joe Biden Center, at the Penn Biden Center, at Wilmington. They say, the Attorney General has appointed a special counsel to investigate this. And they say, okay, Congressman, your letter expresses an interest in learning when the department became aware that documents had been discovered and the sequence of events that followed. Very true. We all want to know that. In connection with appointing a special counsel, the Attorney General has provided significant information about how the matter came into the department, referencing the statement of Attorney General Merrick Garland, which we read through and dissected at length. We have a whole timeline that has built out over this. I'm not going to go through it now. But he didn't give us hardly any information. In fact, he started his summary of this basically on November 4th, when the DOJ got it. The documents were discovered November 2nd. Merrick Garland started his report on November 4th. What happened on the 2nd and on the 3rd? He didn't give us any details about that. That's what the Congress is asking about. On the evening of Friday, November 4th, they're doing the same thing. That's not what they're asking about. We're asking about November 2nd and November 3rd. But they say the National Archives Office of Inspector General contacted a prosecutor at the department about the discovery of the documents. That's great. Yeah, we know all of that. Neat. Nobody's asking about that. We're asking about what happened on the 2nd and the 3rd. They were identified at the Penn Biden Center. They say, and so what happened is then on November 9th, several days later, on November 9th, what happened on November 8th, by the way? Anybody remember what happened on November 8th? Important date. Yeah, the election. On November 9th, the day after the election, the FBI commenced an assessment consistent with what they say are standard protocols to determine whether classified information has been mishandled. November 14th, special counsel got appointed, John Lausch. We talked about him. And he sent so they cover over this too. They don't tell us about the letter that John Lausch sent in mid-November, telling the Biden lawyers to stop searching for documents. They continued to search for documents, found more documents, which in my opinion is obstruction. They were told to stop searching by the DOJ. They kept searching. All right, that's obstruction. That was enough to raid Trump's house. On January 5th, Mr. Lausch recommended special counsel be appointed based on that initial investigation and recommendation. Special counsel was appointed on the 12th. Consistent with all of this, they made the disclosures according to their own rules, and they say that's all you need. Right? That's basically answering your question. So they acknowledge you expressed interest in learning when the department became aware of the documents. And this is where they learned it. I guess that's answering the question on November 4th. So they're basically saying, don't come to us for answers. Send your other information about what happened on the 2nd and the 3rd to the National Archives. And of course, they're going to be interviewing them tomorrow. Your letter also requests non-public information that is central to the special counsel investigation. The department's longstanding policy is to maintain confidentiality. It protects the American people. Disclosing non-public information is a problem, blah, blah, blah. Further, although Congress has a clearly legitimate interest in determining how to enforce the statutes, this could risk jeopardizing our investigations. Again, blah, 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 blah. All copy and paste garbage. The Attorney General said the appointment underscores our commitment to independence and accountability, which, yes, that's one reason to appoint special counsel. Another reason is to isolate the investigation from any recourse or exposure from external entities. Okay, you have a situation like this exactly. Here you have Congress sending a letter over to the DOJ. The DOJ, oh, we can't answer anything. Why? Special counsel. Perfect. Matters run by a special counsel are subject to specific regulations that basically act as a force field against angry Republicans. In addition, the special counsel establishes procedures for disclosing certain information to Congress. These regulations will continue to govern our disclosures. We hope this information is helpful. Guess what? It's not. Please don't hesitate to contact this office. And of course, we'll see what Jim Jordan does. My guess is they do. They already issued a response. We'll take a quick look at that after we talk about our friends at Goldco. Goldco is a good place to go if you need to protect your retirement savings, your IRA or your 401k, because as you know, things are scary out there. The Biden administration has already printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined. The national debt hit a record over $30 trillion. Inflation is the highest we've seen since 1982. It's only a matter of time before the house of cards comes crashing down. If you have retirement savings, your money could be at serious risk. Talk to my friends at Goldco to see how you can protect your retirement with gold and silver before it's too late. Go to robertlikesgold.com. Go there, they'll give you $10,000 or more in free silver when you open a qualifying account at robertlikesgold.com. They are A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. You can turn your brass into gold. I do love gold. It makes you feel nice and good, and ABG should always buy gold from our friends at Goldco. And thank you for supporting our sponsors here. Now, the House Judiciary has already started to respond to this. They're saying this is going to get a little bit problematic. One response was published on January 30th. They said the DOJ's wrong to not comply with our investigations, even if the matter at hand is ongoing. But now that the Houck case is over, will they answer our questions? Right? So basically what they're saying in this is they sent a prior letter on October 7th about the Mark Houck case, which is a case that he was acquitted on, thankfully. But they sent letters. The DOJ said, well, we can't answer anything because it's an ongoing investigation. And so the GOP is saying, well, it's over now. So now can you answer questions for us? And we'll see what else they have here. If they published anything useful. Dan Bishop says, the end COVID-19 health emergency declaration passed 220 to 210 in Congress. And Johnson says tomorrow, the Judiciary GOP will use our first hearing of Congress to examine the Biden border crisis, calling the situation at the southern border dire. So we're just getting warmed up. We can certainly see that the battle lines are being drawn. The letters are flying from both sides. The DOJ, the Treasury, all of the different Biden agencies are going to put up force fields to protect their Lord and Savior. And we will continue to cover it. Thank you for subscribing and liking this video wherever it is you are watching us. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, that was it for the show. And we covered a lot of ground. We got some DOJ action with Jim Jordan. The battle is going to continue there. The secret searches we learned about took place at the Penn Biden Center. The very transparent administration is not transparent at all. We keep learning more and more as days go by. And of course, the Biden administration is retreating on COVID, and the Republicans are pushing forward ahead regardless. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about all of this. I saw some very nice super chats come in from our friends on YouTube. And of course, as usual, we will go say hello to our Rumble friends and our Twitter friends before we jump into the after party over on Locals. And so let's get these screens queued up properly so we can dig into them. First one is here from our friend on YouTube. Came in from Celia Frostborn. Says the following. What's up, Celia? Says here, the thing is, if they fully announce the pandemic is at an end officially, can Biden still try to cheat the student loan forgiveness through? Yes, I think so. Yes. So I think maybe that's what he was referencing at the Supreme Court. So you've got the student loan forgiveness, right, which was the $10,000 sort of grant, which is being challenged. And I think they're granting that on the back of some COVID emergency protocols. So if you're asking about, that, I think they'll probably still try to cram that through, although I think that's a separate issue as well. There's a lot of convoluted issues. I mean, my position on this, Celia, is that they're going to try to cram all of this through, as much as they can. Even when the pandemic is officially over, like they're still not going to give up certain powers and privileges. They're just making this announcement because they're trying to deflate the Republicans from their efforts is all. I don't think they have any intention of actually giving up any power. Eddie Oliver is here, says, yeah, can you believe, Eddie, that they actually called that woman a congresswoman? I know, gentlewoman. Very, very bigoted white male type behavior. It was a typical white male up there, wasn't it? With the gavel today? Figures. Yeah. All right, Fred Petamonte is here. Fred Petamonte's dog is like Jason Bourne. Let's see what's going on here. Robert, my dog jumped on the bed today and took a nap. Okay, that's normal dog behavior. That's like what we're used to seeing. Now let's see what happens next. Later, he said, don't worry, I got something big coming. Ever heard of Jeffrey Epstein? Oh, man. Jeffrey Epstein. He's coming over? Don't worry, I got something big coming. Ever heard of Epstein? He's coming over? Well, I know what happened on this one, Fred. Your dog. So your dog is very astute. He probably has a very sophisticated nose. Probably was able to find where Jeffrey Epstein is currently living. I'm guessing that's what happened. He probably just sniffed him out. He's obviously alive somewhere in some island. Probably was like, oh, I figured out where it is, and just hopped in the, Pacific and, wherever or the Atlantic, and flew down there to one of the islands and found him and probably asked him about this. He's like, oh, I figured you were here, Jeffrey. And he's like, ah, they got me. I'm busted. And so I guess he's bringing him over. That's awesome. Well, I'd love to talk to him. I mean, if your dog is willing to allow us to have a conversation with him, I'd love to talk to him. I mean, your dog's out of control. I mean, it's like I said, he's like a super spy. Is he Tom Cruise or something? That's weird. All right, good to see you, Fred. Geomancy is here. And Geomancy is on YouTube, and you can subscribe to his channel, of course. Says, wreck me, Representative Carmack. Oh, gosh. All right. Get a room, you two. Kareem says, this is great news. Thanks, Rob. I look forward to a great post-pandemic summer. Me too. It's great news. I've been waiting, all these years for them to finally announce it. Now I can start living my life again. Now, God, oh, great. Can we take our masks off on May 12th now? Good. That's great. Everybody can take their masks off on May 12th now. Great news. All right. Devin says he helped cuss the Dems to win. Which one would that be? When I think of that, I think of Lindsey Graham. That's the person I think of when you say that phrase. He helped cause the Dems to win. I think of Lindsey Graham. I'm not sure who you're referencing there, Devin, but thank you for the dono. Thank you to all those amazing donos that came in from our friends on YouTube. I saw one more, so let's do a refresh. I do appreciate all of you supporting the work that we do here. Here we had a couple others. What's up? K Bean's in the house. And Raymond is also here. Raymond says, to be clear, DOJ isn't sharing any info to Jordan regarding Biden. However, the DOJ shared info with Schiff during Trump impeachment. For what reason? Well, there's a lot of questions about that, Raymond. I don't know where Schiff got those materials, but some people are thinking it was the classified materials like from the SCIF, right? Like he was going into intelligence briefings and leaking those materials to the media. So I don't know if that was actually DOJ or if that was Schiff. A lot of Congress people like Mike Pompeo, he's former CIA and former Secretary of State. He was saying that Schiff was leaking classified briefings to the media that was specifically damaging to Trump. So now that being said, like the DOJ is a leaky sieve, right? You can give examples where they're leaking. The Washington Post, for example, got a ton of stories when Donald Trump had his residence raided. We were covering them all here. We're like, wow, more information. Wow, more information. And we were mocking Merrick Garland about this as the person who always says, we speak through our filings and our court proceedings. Okay. And then that's not true at all because their U.S. attorneys or FBI agents are funneling stuff over to the media left and right as long as it's bad for their opponents. Amazing. Norman is here. Says, thanks, Rob, for your focus. It's admirable. Well, I don't know about that, Norman. Thank you, Norman, for saying that. You're very nice. I appreciate you being here and donating to support the work that we do. I'm grateful for it. All right, we also had this one from K Bean. We had two come in from K Bean today. I see another one just popped in. So what's going on over here? I see on behalf of Mama Sari, cancer-free today. Wow. All right, so K Bean, on behalf of Teresa B. Kind, 2 times cancer survivor, and birthday is tomorrow. Cheers to Teresa B. Kind, 2 times cancer survivor, and birthday is tomorrow. Cheers. Also, on behalf of Mama Sari, cancer-free today. Ultra shout-outs to Mama Sari, to Teresa B., and all the cancer survivors out there, including my mama. Mama Govea is a 2-time cancer survivor as well. And an amazing woman. Beat that sucker twice. 2 big ones, too. She's just outstanding. We love all of our cancer survivors. Shout out to Mama Sari. Shout out to Teresa B. Kind. Shout out to everybody who is battling cancer and fighting the good fight. We love you all. Keep fighting and pushing ahead. We'll be here for you. And shout out to all of you for supporting them. All right, good stuff. And thank you, K Bean, for sending that in. And Geomancy. Geomancy's in the house too. Yeah, Geomancy's battling this right now, right? Geomancy's battling this too. And another good point, right? Go over and support Geomancy. One way to do that is by just subscribing to that channel right there. This Geomancy channel. He's also on Locals too. And K Bean sending in another super chat. We love our Geomancy too. Right, everybody, right? We love it to support the people who need our support. Geomancy is in the house. Thank you, K Bean. And we support his work. Good stuff, everybody. All right, and so that, my friends, was what we had on YouTube. Let's say hello to some Rumble rants from our Rumble friends and see who's over there. And we have some amazing people in the chat. What's up, Dog Digger? We got Jacob Castro. Nick Danger is over in the house. What's up, Nick Danger? Vienticus Prime says, yeah, me neither. We got Jacob Castro Perambulator. Vienticus is in the house. We got Lil Galaxy. We got Salty Zipper something. You're going to have to go over there to see what that last name is there. Lil Galaxy's in the house. Annie Graham. Elephani is over there. What's up, Elephani? Southern Bix. Slow Hand. Who's Nacho Daddy is in the house. Who's Nacho Daddy is in the house over there on Rumble. And so we love our Rumble friends. Let's see what's going on Twitter. We always like to hit up the free speech platforms and see what the internet free speech platforms have for us, have in store for us. We had a couple of these come out. Here's the first one from Paul Mino. Says, fighting fake news on the daily. Good job, Rob. There it is, baby. Fake news. That's what we try to do here. All these copy and paste journos, peacefully, and this is a nice, peaceful, coordinated, orchestrated environment. Maybe they shouldn't put fake news up and stand up to the match. Thank you, Paul. And I like how you put in my my smiley face right after, right there. There it is. Smile and exit and smile. Hey, off camera, off frame. Thank you, Paul. V says proof of medical How about we just pull up a clip? Okay, that's a V comment. We'll come back to that one. Did someone say Merrick Garland? I don't know what this one's from. Is this an evil character? CA Human is here, says, greetings, everybody. And V left a comment that we'll look at off YouTube. Sheila Mays says, thanks, Robert. Thank you, Sheila. Thanks for dropping in our Twitter thread and saying hello. Danny says, cancer does suck. Been there, done that. Glad you're still with us, Danny. Thanks for being here with us, my man. TJ is here. We had a couple other clips coming out. Oh, this is what it looks like. This was an interesting one where Jill was scolding Joe for some reason, and he was like a sad puppy dog. That's what it looks like when they're looking down. It's Joe's ice cream cone. Dang it, Joe. Told you to hold on to that thing. We had a couple other comments. Just Waiting says, wake me up on election day after being put in cryo sleep. Albin is here showing us some wow, these are very scary illegal transactions here. 3 eggs, 3 for 20, 3 eggs for 20. That's a good deal, man. It's a real good deal. Where are you getting your eggs, bro? Send me a DM. Let me get some of those eggs. Man, that's good eggs. It's a good price. We don't get those on the street around here. We had a couple others that were posted in from TJ, some Brett Garrison comments that we're not going to put on the YouTubes over here. But check out the Twitter. Check out. If you want to know what Paul Mino is responding to right here, then you can go over to the Twitter thread at Rob Govea, ESQ, if you want to check out our Twitter thread. All right, and so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are going over to our amazing community at watchingthewatchers.locals.com to chat for a little bit longer and go through some additional comments and hang out with an amazing community. Come and join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have a bunch of new names in there, a bunch of new people jumping into the chat and leaving comments, and it's fun. And I hope to see you inside. We also want to thank our sponsors of the show, our friends over at 4Patriots. You can get solar generator, survival food kit, all sorts of good stuff at 4patriots.com. Use code Robert to save 10% off. Also, check out our friends over at Goldco. Go to robertlikesgold.com and you can protect your retirement with gold and silver there. We have our friends at Brickhouse Nutrition, where you can get your field of greens, eat your daily servings of vegetables and fruit, all in an easy to consume, and it tastes delicious, actually. It is very good, and you can see what it does to your hair, your follicles. That's not medical advice, but it does make you feel about as vibrant as this does right there. Of course, our law firm, the R&R Law Group, which is where we help good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope, not only in their cases, but beyond that, in their lives. And we are doing one final refresh because I saw Kay Bean says, oh, hey, this one came in from Mama Suri. Mama Suri says, thank you for your support, Kay Bean, Rob, and chat. Much love to all. Well, we love you back, Mama Suri. And so thank you for saying that in chat. thank you for being so loving and welcoming to everybody and being good sports about all that we do here. Thank you, K-Bean, for flagging that for me. Of course, our law firm, 480-787-0394, if you know anybody who needs some help in our state. We also want to thank our mods and our meme smiths who help bring the show together and mod down the fort for us, including Vientikis Prime. We've got K-Bean in the house. We got Just Cause. Lean, we have Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, our friend Zulu, and Geomancy Games. You can also subscribe to him on YouTube. For the meme smiths, big ultra shout outs to our friends Sleepy Dog Lee. You can follow him on Twitter, or come check out our friend Geegum Geegum on our locals community. We appreciate all their spicy memes, make the show nice and lively and fun. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We are going over to locals for a little bit to chat and continue on in our after party. And I hope to see you there. But if not, we will be back here tomorrow to do this all again. And I hope you join us. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing the shorts that we publish with friends or family so they can come and sort of, get a little taste of the program before they come and join us for a big live stream. But I appreciate you sharing the show. It really helps us sort of spread outside of the YouTube bubble. And we will be back here to do it all again. And I hope to see you there so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a tremendous night, my friends. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.